In these last few parts of my bonus episodes for Sacred Stones, I'm going to be looking at the prototype or beta version of the game. How did I get access to this? Well, serenadesforest.net has a downloadable patch that you can apply to a North American ROM of Sacred Stones that will turn it into the beta version. So yes, you do need an emulator and ROMs for this. I won't directly tell you where to find those, but I will post a link to the Serenades Forest page that has the downloadable patch. It'll also link to instructions on how to apply the patch. Be warned that the beta version is entirely in Japanese, but you can find walkthroughs of what each option in the menus do online. Now, if this video ever gets a bit choppy or stuttery, that's actually not the game's fault. That's the fault of me having to use Fraps to record this, and Fraps isn't really all that reliable for this kind of thing, so I apologize in advance. Hello everyone, and welcome to this thing. Yeah, lots of Japanese and question mark character portraits. Welcome to the Fire Emblem Sacred Stones prototype version, or the beta version as some call it. So, this is probably going to be very confusing, but I'm going to try and walk you through a little bit of how this works, and just show some of the funny differences to the final version. So, this was released actually the same year that Sacred Stones did, so it's actually not that early into development, but a lot is clearly missing from this game. So, let me first just go through the options on this first menu. The first one here is Release Entry, which I believe just continues the game from normal. In fact, let me just see what happens. Oh, right, that just starts the game off from the title screen, which is still FE7's title screen. Yeah, get used to this. There's a lot of leftover stuff from FE7, so yeah, we don't need that. And, okay, that's lagging a lot. Let's go back. One thing that I want to say is, if you are going to be playing around with the beta version, I would highly recommend making a save state on this title screen. Because, yeah, a lot of things have a tendency to make the game go weird or crash. So, make sure you have an easy way to just snap right back to this state and pretend everything else never happened. So yeah, that I believe just boots up the game normally. This says continue from anywhere. This is kind of basically the normal suspend function. This is manual continue. This is if you make a... The demo versions seem to have kind of permanent saves you can make. This lets you continue from one of those. This option here is Initialize File. This prompts you to delete all save data. Now, seeing as this version doesn't really have save data, that's probably safe, but don't touch this anyway. This one here is World Map. I'll get to that later. This is basically how they must have tested the world map in Sacred Stones. This here is the map select. Basically, the early chapters, Erica chapter, well, prologue to 8, are all labelled as Tuto, or tutorial. And now we have Erica, 9 to all the way up to 20, Irzark, which seems to have been Ephraim's early name, except when we get into the game proper, you'll see that his name is still Ephraim, so don't know why this is still Irzark, but yeah. And, these things, these are numbers. Some of these will crash the game, so yeah, I'm pretty sure this VS Erica crashes the game. The D one is a debug map that seems to work just fine. I'll be going into that one soon. This one seems to just be an empty... I can show you what this one is if I press the A button. Anna's asking me if I want to continue from this point. So, yeah, FE7 chapter opening screen as well. This is like something village? Or something yeah, something village. Anyway, there's just a castle here, and if we go into check map, we've got a completely blank, empty map with just a castle. So this is probably just a random testing debug map. Reset. Okay, so what I'm really looking for here is the debug map for Erica. So let's go into that one. We didn't get a prompt for Anna here. Guess she's okay with us entering this part of the game's universe. And it's quite a bizarre one, though everything in this demo is bizarre. Also, hi there, Wind Across the Plains. So, all the music in this game is entirely from FE7. So, it seems like they probably weren't finished with the new Sacred Stones tracks. But anyway, this is your typical debug map. We've got a bunch of characters here, and a bunch of enemies that are a complete clone of us, for the most part, apart from all of these random tents. So if we look at our characters here, here's Erica. Her portrait looks very different. And if we check her description, that's a different button, I'll be getting to that button later. It just says Princess of Renee's, so clearly they haven't worked on the descriptions very much at this point. Also, she has 4 iron swords. A lot of characters have a bunch of stuff. So yeah, here is, if you read this, it says Epharamu, so clearly he's still Ephraim, but he was called Isaac 4, and it just says Prince of Renee's. And here's Seth. Is it just me, or his stats seem a little bit different from the final version? Here's Gilliam. He's still named Gilliam. His stats are a little bit different, but he's still Gilliam. Here's Vanessa, and she's got an Elysian whip in her inventory, except if we try and use that, if we try and go here and use it, 4 units level 10 and above, so she can't use that. Here's Mulder. Am I the only one who thinks he looks even cooler than he does in the actual game? This is Summonan. Remember that character that I was talking about in my video on unused content? This is him. He's actually kind of interesting. I'll show him off a bit later. Here's Summon, the other Summon person. Here is Marissa, for some reason, and bizarrely enough, she can use lances. If you try and put a lance in her inventory and have her attack with it, you don't get battle animations, but for some very bizarre reason, she can use them. And this is really weird. Here's Innes, but he's a monk. I don't know why he's a monk, but he just is. And I think that just says placeholder. Yeah, that's like holy light magic users. Yeah, that's kind of bizarre. So, we also have a playable Revenant, and if you check his description, it just says Demon Zombie. His stats are pretty much nothing, and here's the Stone Shard from the unused content video that I did, and a playable Bone Walker, which just here says Demon Skeleton. He's got a bunch of weapons that he can use. Now, these two are actually pretty hilarious, so I might want to show them off. Let's actually go ahead and have you attack something. Look at these silly animations. Yeah, obviously these are very, very early unfinished animations. Also, these two don't have portraits. But yeah. Yeah, look at that crappy early Bone Walker animation. They clearly weren't very far in development at this point. Also, speaking of people with question mark portraits, here's Naomi, although her name here is Mary, and her description is placeholder, and she doesn't have a portrait, unlike anyone else we have, apart from the monsters. So, my guess is that Naomi was actually added fairly late into development. Anyway, we also have a bunch of enemies here. We also have this. It looks like a female druid, but this is actually a Gorgon. Don't know why, but yeah. Also, these tents, Gorgon egg. They're all Gorgon eggs. Once I turn on the enemy phase, things are going to start getting very weird, but the enemy just has copies of all of us. Erica, Ephraim, Summon and Summoner. You're still... Oh, that's because I damaged you. And this random enemy boss, who's simply named Evil. Clearly went to the same school of villainry as Hans and Iago. But yeah, his description is just Grotto enemy soldier boss. And he has no weapons that he can use. There's also a couple of houses here, but I wouldn't recommend visiting them. Weird things happen. I'll probably show those off later, but I will need to reload a state after I do. Now, remember how I said that the summoner here is kind of interesting? So this option right here, this is summon. Huh, we just made a Hawkeye. Actually, no, this is what phantoms look like in the beta version. So, this is to all intents and purposes a phantom. It's just got Hawkeye's map sprite and looks like a fighter for reasons. But yeah, it is a phantom. I'm guessing they did this just to test out how the summoner class worked, and whether they didn't, and his description is a glitchy mess. And he has no battle animations. So effectively, that is a phantom. Kinda cool how they were able to test that out. Probably the reason why Summoner and Summoner exist. Can you summon? You actually can't summon. Only this one can. So, I'm going to go ahead and have Erica fight her doppelganger here, because Erica's beta animations were very different. Also, hi there, Shadow Erica. I am a shadow, the true self. And speaking of true self, Ephraim's definitely not feeling like his true self here, because if I give Ephraim a weapon, which I'll actually have to show a different feature to use, we'll see that Ephraim, actually I can first maybe have Marissa attack the other Ephraim. Ephraim looks like, in this case, a very demonic version of Eliwood, but yeah, Ephraim has Eliwood sprite, also Marissa has a male Mirabidon sprite. But yeah, Ephraim's battle sprite is clearly not finished, he just looks like Eliwood, who uses lances, and doesn't have the proper animations for them. Okay, you're all probably sick of Wind Across the Plains, so let's do something to change that. If we press the A button on a random map tile, we get a bunch of options, many of which are the same as the ones you get in the main game, except for, I believe, this one. Okay, yeah, this is a different option. This one lets you choose who controls the enemies and the players, so that's human, nobody, or computer. Actually, this is just the enemies and the NPCs, I think. But, yeah, so you can choose computer, human, or no one. No one just has them stand around and do nothing. But the real one that I'm looking for here is this menu, Debug, or Debug menu. So this lets you change the map. I'm not going to mess with that here because it could screw things up. This turns on a debug display on the side. Doesn't really do all that much. This lets you set the weather. So here's sandstorm. Here's snow. Here's blizzard. Rain. I'm not entirely sure what that is, and here's the lava effect that I was mentioning in the unused content video, and back to clear. So this option here in Japanese literally translates as enemy search. This turns on and off fog of war, although can't really seem to get it working here. I'm guessing it only works on certain maps. This here toggles the number of playthroughs, and this option here says clear. So if we press A on this, we get a dialog box for confirmation that we can scroll through the text on for some reason. And if we say yes, it turns this file into an epilogue file. It also boots you out, so I had to go back in here. This is, if you recognize this, this is the tactician from FE7. If we press the L and R buttons, we can toggle the tactician on and off. And if we use left and right, we can toggle the number of tactician stars. Well, tactician points, and then the yellow number is the number of stars. And if we press, I believe, the select button, yeah, this toggles the tactician's affinity, and if we cycle through all the affinities, it will eventually toggle their blood type. If blood type isn't familiar to you, it's because it got removed from the English version of FE7. Now, Sacred Stones doesn't have any events that are programmed to use a tactician at all, but, you know, I wonder if the very tiny hit rate bonus to characters of the same affinity as the tactician still applies here. It probably does. But anyway, let's just go ahead and get back into the debug menu. Let's just go ahead and turn the tactician off for now. And then this option. This in Japanese says good night. Let's see what happens if we select it. Oh no, we've irreversibly crashed the game! The horror! Except we can just press the L and R buttons at the same time, and the game's fine. That is actually activating sleep mode. This is a little known fact that most GBA games, even before the SP, had a sleep mode function, though you usually had to press some kind of arcane button combination to get into it. This was probably just a test of the sleep mode function. Of course, the one you've all been waiting for. So yeah, if we go through these tracks and press the A button, we can change the music. Here's Dragon's Gate 1. Winning Road in English. But yeah, as you can probably tell, all this music is from FE7, so no Sacred Stones music here, but let's go ahead and choose that one. So, one thing that I want to show off here is that if we go into a character, and we press the L button, it gives us this little pointing hand. Now, if we press the A button and left or right, we can adjust stats here. So let's go ahead and give Erica max strength, let's go ahead and give her max skill, let's give her even lower defense because I'm feeling like a sadist, let's give her max movement, let's give her maxed out con, I said maxed out con, there we go, and it doesn't seem like you can do anything with their affinity for some reason. Oh, it doesn't seem like we can change the number of battles, wins, and losses either. I can change the level, though. Okay, I can modify HP, too. I'm guessing you can modify... Yeah, you can modify the amount of experience they have as well. What happens if I do it on the class? Yeah, no, I probably shouldn't mess with that. But yeah, this is fun to mess around with. Press the B button to get out of this. Now, if you do this on the item screen... That's not doing seeing that on the item screen. I often lose track of buttons on this emulator. So if we press this button, and then if we press A and scroll, we can scroll through effectively every single weapon in the game. Well, every weapon that was in Blazing Sword, that is. So, yeah. I think that's the Wu Dao, which I believe Erica can't use in this version, which is interesting. Armor Slayer. The Rune Sword looks a little bit different than it normally does, or is that just me? Lance Reaver, go through the lances, axes, everything like that. Also, ballistas. So we can cycle through the ballistas. Some magic tomes. It's a pretty bare-bones selection of tomes. None of the Sacred Stone's legendary weapons or anything like that. Healing staves. The Dragon Axe, which is at the very end of the weapons list, probably because it's event only in FE7. Stat boosters. Promotion items. Keys. Healing items, torches, the Delphi shield. So yeah, everything is still from FE7. This would be the Philly shield if this was really Sacred Stones, but it's not. Nether card, silver card, gems, bag of gold, which is an unused item. Huh. Why is there a spear so far away from the lances section? If you played FE7, you can probably guess what this lance is. But I'll show that later. Mine, light rune, that would be the iron rune, I think. And Ninian's Dancer Rings. This is interesting. Mark's Sword. This was an event-only item back in Blazing Sword. It's just an iron sword with 60 uses. There's also Mark's Lance, Mark's Axe, Mark's Bow. Mark is the default name of the Tactician, by the way. Huh, you can use Durandal. That's interesting. Durandal, Armads, Ariel, just final chapter legendary weapons. Apha's Drops, Heaven Seal, which actually works. This is weird. Mark's Writing. This is probably an unused item. I'm not really sure what it actually does. Unless it wasn't, I seem to vaguely recall an event tactician item. But anyway, here's the Fell Contract for Assassins. Soul Katai, Wolf Bale, Nergal's Tome. Stone Shard, then S-rank weapons, gold, Wind Sword, and a bunch of unused items that don't really do anything, and the Stone Spell, for some reason. So let's go ahead and give you something that you actually can use, although I'm morbidly curious to see what happens if I try and have you use Nergal's Tome. Okay, let's have you fight your demonically possessed brother. Oh hey, Durandal still has its legendary flash. That's kind of cool. And the music reverted, wow, okay. So, that spear that I promised that I'd show. Let's go ahead and actually bring up Seth's status screen. The L button, and let's just go until we get it. So I have the spear now, and Seth can use it. So yeah, this is actually Vader's Uber Spear from FE7. I feel like its stat boosts are a little bit low though, but this actually is the Uber Spear. So, that's pretty cool. I suppose now I could show off why you don't want to visit these villages. So if you visit this village, it's just going to cycle through all the maps in the game. And there's no real way to get out of this, I found, other than to reset back to the title screen. Okay, let's just test out what the second village does. I haven't actually done this in my own time. Oh, this is probably just portrait testing, okay. So this is just going to show everybody's portrait in turn and how they look when they're moving in cutscenes, right. I guess that makes sense that we'd have to have some kind of portrait testing feature. Okay, that's weird. Okay, everyone else seems to be glitching out a lot, and, oh yeah, there's Kyle and Ford who look totally different, and, okay, everything's... Remember why I said it was a good idea to have a save state in the title screen? Let's do that! Okay, let's pretend that never happened. Sorry, I find glitches like that hilarious. I think I might have broke something there. Okay, let's just calm down and go back to where we were before. Okay, so something that I want to show off here, although it's kind of hard to get working properly, is the character debug menu. So let's go ahead and do this to Seth. So you have to hold down select and start, and then press start again quickly while the cursor is hovering over a character. But the first time they're pressed, you have to press them at pretty much the exact same time, and it's not really an exact science, so let me see if I can get this to work. Yeah, see, that's what happens if your timing is a bit off. Okay, there we go. So, if you've done it right, then the first time you press them, nothing should happen. You shouldn't get that weird select overlay. So anyway, this is the character debug menu. The first option here is Dopingu Suru, or Dope This Unit. I guess use performance-enhancing drugs on them? So anyway, what this does is if we press A, and we go to their screen, this maxes out everything. Although it only gives them +7 movement, rather than the absolute maximum movement they can have, and it doesn't max out their... Actually, let me check if that actually is his max movement. Yes, it is his max movement. Doesn't max out their con, though, but I can fix that pretty easily. Although that lowers his aid down to 0. Anyway, Fat Seth. So, yeah, we now have a super maxed out Seth, which is pretty fun. Now, let me just quickly get back into the character debug menu to talk about what everything else does. Actually, I'll find an enemy to do this to, because for playable characters, the other options don't do anything. There we go, yeah, that takes a while. This must be a keyboard thing. So anyway, this next option, well, this actually does work on playable characters, it sets how much HP they have, but the rest are the ones that only really affect enemies. Well, this one down here sets condition, but I'll talk about that later. So, these two are AI behavior. This is attack AI, and this is movement AI. Now, for attack AI, some of these I don't really understand, like, I don't really know what this is. This must be don't move, but I don't know what the numbers mean. And that's nothing, so that probably means never attack anything. Okay, so nothing... That says Nino... Don't attack Nino? That's Douglas something. That probably is a leftover from FE6. 11B something nothing. Lynn. Roy. Dark, like, gate number something? I have no idea. Leader, I guess that means attack the main lord. Oh, Nusumu, that's steal. Okay, so that must be AI for thieves. That tells them to prioritize stealing items. That's open doors. This is interesting. Rusia Moose, that would be don't attack Lucius. And that's don't attack Raven. That must be custom AI for Lucius and Raven in the chapter they appear in FE7. And that's all we have here. So a lot of these are kind of custom AI behaviors for FE7 characters. But I kind of like how steal and open doors are AI priorities for enemies, but I don't even know what the heck that is. Or that. There's a lot of these that I can't really understand. I don't even know what the numbers are. But anyway, here's movement AI. So I understand what this means. This is move close to enemies. Move close to enemies with a random coup on the end. Again, Douglas. I don't really know exactly how special his AI is in FE6, because I haven't played that for a while, but he seems to have special AI programs. Nothing, which probably means don't move. I have no idea what that is. I have no idea what that is. 2 Idor, like same as 2, okay. And then Kura. Randamu, that's move randomly, I guess. Conversation events. I guess that means move towards a character and automatically talk to them. Conversation Hektoru, which probably means talk to Hector. Don't know what that is. Merlinasu, so move to Merlinus. Eliwood, move to Eliwood. Move to Hector. Move to Nils. I have no idea who has that AI in FE7, but it exists, I guess. Move to Zephiel. I guess the enemies in Battle Before Dawn. And a bunch of random number stuff. Map 19! Guess I'll have to look up Blazing Sword Chapter 19 to see if the enemies there have any special AI. Chuto 2? Chuto 5? Yeah, Heku... I have no idea what some of these are. Move to Eliwood 2, move to Hector 2, and that's all we have. So, that's confusing, but some of those movement AI behaviors I kind of understand. This here is recovery, don't mind the glitched up kanji here. Now, a lot of people don't understand what this means, but I think that I may have figured it out. So, the kanji here from what I can read is this says weak, this says normal, this says strong, this is o-yowa, so I guess very weak, ike, which is go, I really don't know what that means, no data 6, no data 7, and no data 8. So, here's what my guess as to what this is. This determines how enemies that have healing items in their inventory, when they heal. That's what I'm guessing. So this would mean heal when you're on low HP, because it says weak. This would mean just do it normally. This would mean heal when you're strong. This would mean only heal when you're on very low HP. Now, in order to test this, I'd need to set everyone's AI manually to don't attack and give a specific enemy 1 HP and a healing item. Now here is condition. So this is normal condition, poisoned, asleep. I actually not sure what that is. That's berserk. But don't scroll past... Oh yeah, we can see that the berserk icon is above her head. That's kind of cool. Oh, that's silence. Yeah, that would be silenced by the icon. But yes, whatever you do, do not scroll past berserk. And I'm going to do it right now just to show you what happens. None of my buttons do anything, by the way. The game is completely soft-locked at this point. Yep, nothing I'm pressing is doing anything. Game is officially dead. Reset time. Just a quick experiment I want to do. I want to see what happens if I have an archer attack with a ballista hacked into their inventory. Well, it seems to work. As you can see, here's the beat-up ballista animation that was cut out of the final game, but it turns Mary into a male archer, because they only programmed it for male archers. Also, yeah, you'll notice the music snaps back to Wind Across the Plains every time there's a change of song, like if someone attacks. So, get used to Wind Across the Plains in this demo, you'll be hearing it a lot. Okay, so we're back here, and I found out it's more convenient to simply give every enemy weapons they can't use than it is to set all of their AI behavior to don't attack. So anyway, here's my experiment. Everyone here can't attack. Erica has 1 HP. I used doping on her, so she's also Super Erica, but let's forget that. She has 1 HP, she has an elixir in her inventory, and I've set her AI healing behavior to weak. Let's see what happens. Now, you're about to see some very weird things happen with Gorgon eggs first, though. It seems like Gorgon eggs are coded, like, this might be a very early version of the Gorgon egg hatching mechanism. It's some kind of bizarre inverted poison that also teleports the last character who you use debug tools on inside the eggs. I don't know why it's doing that either, but anyway, watch carefully. The enemies here are going to move, and... look at that! Erica actually used her elixir. Also, look at that, it's going to take forever for her HP to fill up because I set it to maximum. But yeah, it seems like I've solved the mystery of what recovery does. It sets how the AI behaves when it comes to healing items in their inventory. So that's kind of cool. Also, everyone else here is set to move closer to the enemy, and they have no weapons, so they're just doing this. But yeah, the way Gorgon eggs work is bizarre. If I try and view the status screen here, all I get is the egg. Okay, test number 2. Let's see what happens if I do everything exactly the same, except I set Erica's healing behavior to no data 6. Hopefully this will mean that she doesn't heal. Also, I'm going to need to debug someone else, otherwise Erica will be teleported inside the eggs and won't be able to heal even if she wanted to. So you're accessing debug tools with one other character is enough to do this. I'm sorry, Seth, but you're going inside the eggs again. That's a very weird sentence. These eggs are bizarre in the way they work in this version. This is probably just an early, very buggy version of their hatching mechanism. They clearly hadn't fully coded it at this point. They probably did base it on poison somehow. But anyway, let's see if Erica heals or not this time. Because there doesn't seem to be a healing behavior set for don't heal. So, I had to choose no data. Let's see if it works or not. Well, everyone else is moving before she is. And hey, she didn't heal, so I guess that is working. Now, there's also a map debug tool. For that one, you have to do the same thing for the character debug, that is, hold, start, and select, and then quickly press start again, but you have to do it on an empty tile. There we go, there it is. So, from this debug menu, you can select the turn number, and you can turn on, you need to use the select button for this. Wait, actually, no, you need to use the A button. You can turn AI on for the second army, which is the enemy, and the third army, which is NPCs, which there aren't any on this map. So if I turn the AI off for the enemy, let's see what happens if I end the turn. Well, the Gorgon eggs will go, let me just skip through this. But other than that, they don't move. So that's pretty much what you'd expect. There's also another debug menu that you can get in this game. You have to hover the cursor over a character, and then I believe it's Start, Select, and R. Here it is. Yeah, it might take a few tries. So, this is a debug stat screen. It shows the character's stats and all the items they have in their inventory. I don't know what those CP... I guess that must be their AI behavior, what they're set to. And there are a few pages of this. You can also scroll through your characters by pressing up and down. But if you press left and right, you'll see the second one of this. This is the support debug menu. Now, only 3 supports are programmed into the beta version. Erica and Seth, and Erica and Franz, which I don't think is an option she has in the final game. So, here's Erica, and it shows her affinity there, light. And if we go down, there's Ephraim. Everyone else, as you can see... Okay, there's also Seth and Franz. But nobody else seems to have any supports programmed in, so I'm just going to go ahead and go to Erica. Now, if I press L here, and we can use A and the directional buttons to increase the number of support points. Be warned that this screen gets very flickery. But yeah, if I increase it up to 90, we now have a C rank. Now we have B, now we have an A, and it can't go above A. And indeed, if we check Erica's status screen, she's listed as having A support with Seth, so this is how you modify supports. Now, from what I've heard, it is possible to do support conversations in the beta version, but the only text that shows up is something like, Erica and Seth Conversation 1. So, they're all just placeholders. Okay, just curious, it looks like this actually has a proper description, this Mark's document. Something along the lines of, a document written by Mark the Tactician. Fight better while holding it. I seem to remember there was an event item in FE7 that did something like increases critical evade by a tiny amount, or something like that. It's like hidden critical evade or hidden critical or something like that. Anyway, the main thing that I wanted to show is Mirgel's Tome Eresh Kigal, which anyone seems to be able to use. And if you have a dark magic user attack with it, it actually has proper animations. Yep, that's Mirgel's Tome, alright. And anyone can use it, so this Revenant here also has it, and I'm going to have him attack with it. It defaults to map animations off. And it also follows the same rules as the Learning Dark Magic glitch, in that anybody who uses Dark Magic without a rank instantly gains a Dark rank. So, I guess that's always been a feature of the game. So that's everything that I want to show on the debug map, and I'm so sorry that Wind Across the Plains is going to be stuck in your head forever after this. In the next and probably final part of my look at the beta version, I'll be covering the actual main story chapters and the differences there. There's actually quite a few of them, so look forward to that, and I'll see you then.